Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Senator Jones and I, wanted to talk about what's been going on the college campuses these last few weeks. And first of all, I just want to say it's outrageous and it's unacceptable that we've allowed this chaos to ensue over weeks. Free speech, of course, needs to be protected. The right to express yourself, especially on college campuses, is important. But when that moves to acts where you are taking away other people's rights, where you're harassing, intimidating, and committing assaults on Jewish students, when you are blocking people's access to get their education and their free movement on campus, it's a totally different story. Now the president, I'm glad he actually came out this morning and said this and made this distinction. I think he got it mostly right, but it's unacceptable that it took 2 weeks for him to actually come out and say anything. It's unacceptable that our governor has largely said very little about this and taken very little action to quell what has been going on our campuses, and our campus administrations totally failed in their duty to keep a safe and secure campus for students. There needs to be accountability, and so Senator Jones and I are talking about the things that we want to implement, and I think in the budget is maybe the best way to do it. Those students who committed violent acts, who trampled on other students' rights, they should lose their Cal Grants. We should not be giving Cal Grant money, state money, to students who are trampling on other people's rights. And these campus administrators, like at Humboldt State, for example, where classes were closed down, where all students' rights were violated by this, they should lose funding. Not the students, the administration, which, by the way, has grown exponentially over the last 10 years. And they did very little to protect students' rights. They should be punished for their failure to act. And so we as Republicans want accountability for this. We want real action for this. No more words, or failure to say anything or do anything like we've seen out of Gavin Newsom, but actual actions to hold people accountable.
I agree, and I think one of the things that we're seeing lately in the United States of America is an undermining and misunderstanding of the First Amendment. The First Amendment gives individuals the freedom of expression, assembly, religion, and press. It gives individuals the freedom to bring their redresses, their complaints to their government for action from their government. The First Amendment does not guarantee you the right to impede other citizens' First Amendment rights. It does not give you the right to stop students from going to class. It doesn't give you the right to put up barricades and commit violent acts. It doesn't give you the right to paint a public street like we have out here in front of the Capitol today. That is, when they closed down the street yesterday without a permit, without permission, and the police stood by and just watched it happen. And I haven't even seen all the comments that are written on painted permanently on the street that our government allowed that to happen. That is not a First Amendment right, to stop people and impede people from getting to work and going through their daily activity. That's when your First Amendment ends, is when you impede other people from their First Amendment rights. Now, addressing specifically the campuses, not only has this been allowed, but if you look at the videos today that are surfacing from UCLA and other campuses, the administration didn't just allow this. In some cases, I believe they've been complicit. You look at the fencing barricade that they put up. You look at the supplies that they gave the protesters. You look at the latitude and the amount of damage they allowed these protesters to do. I would argue that the administrations at these campuses are complicit in what's happened, not just allowing it. And that's why Assemblymember Gallagher and I are working together to have a budget solution. One aspect of addressing this issue is a budget solution that we can propose through this building to make sure that these administrators know that this legislature is serious when it comes to keeping students safe on these public campuses, and we have a responsibility to make sure that happens. And if the administrators won't take it serious, we will.
Can you clarify, on the Cal Grant proposal, where are you drawing the line? What do you think rises to the level of being worthy of losing that kind of financial aid? Could you specify that?
I'm talking about students who are found to commit violence on those campuses, who are violating other people's rights, harassing and intimidating people, stopping them from going to class, physically barring people from going to class. and we've seen it all on video. There's many of this is on video of people doing this. If you're trampling on your fellow students' rights to get an education, and violently attacking them, blocking them, barring them, surrounding them and stopping them from getting to class, yeah, I think that you forfeit your right to a Cal Grant. I mean, that's not right. Those aren't something that are just given out. Those are things that you should,
that are very competitive, and you have to earn those.
Right.
I mean, there's lots of students competing for those Cal Grants, and so we ought to be rewarding the students that want to use those Cal Grants to go to school, get educated, and become productive members of society, not students or maybe off-campus agitators, actually, that may not even be serious about getting an education in the first place.
And here's my bigger point, man. Like, the students are the ones who suffered. The students are the ones for weeks that have been deprived of their rights to education. We've had Jewish students who have had some serious actions taken against them. They fear for their lives going to class. That should not be the case on our university campuses. And there's got to be some accountability for that. Yes, I mean, of course the people doing this should have been arrested. They should be suspended, but there should also be other accountability for this action.
But how would you not enforce, but like how would you even begin to carry out a proposal like
I think
this?
what it would be is, hey, if you're found and convicted of doing this, right, like there has to be due process, of course.
Okay.
There has to be due process, but if you're convicted of doing this, then yeah, you should lose your rights to that Cal Grant.
So in essence, I mean, are you basically saying that Democrats this year should consider maybe cutting funds to administrations in these UCs, CSUs or whatever because of how they handle all of this?
We are here today to encourage our Democrat colleagues to do exactly that.
And look, let me be very clear. I think it's the administration that needs to take the cut. Because
That's
we've got a
correct,
whole
yes.
lot of people at these universities that are drawing six-figure salaries, and they stood by and did nothing while all this happened, and did not act. They did not protect students. And so, yeah, I think if there's going to be repercussions, it should be against them, not against the students. They've already suffered enough. They've suffered for the last 3 weeks on all of this, right? And so there does need to be accountability. Yeah, and I think some people need to be fired, right? Some people should not have a job if they were not acting to protect students on these campuses.
And that's exactly right. These administrators show that they don't have the will over the last several weeks to keep our students safe on these campuses. And look, all three of my kids have gone to community college. 2 of them have graduated from San Diego State. I graduated from San Diego State. When we put our kids on these campuses, we expect them to be safe and get a good education. California still has the best higher education system in the country. And as parents, as citizens, as taxpayers, we expect these campuses to be safe. And there are administrators that as we go through this process, and there's a due process to this, some of them may have to lose their jobs over this.
Have you had any discussions with Democratic leadership about having oversight hearings into this issue?
We're beginning to have, yes, we've been having those conversations throughout the week. And look, all of us here are in a spot where we never expected to be as legislators, being elected by our local communities to come here and legislate. We never thought that we were going to have to oversee public safety on California campuses, but that's where we are, and we're having those conversations.
And look, I anticipate that there will be bipartisan work on this. I anticipate that Democrats are already talking about this and saying, look, there does need to be repercussions, there needs to be accountability, and we're simply just putting out what we think those things should be. And look, we're going to be working in this process, and I think it could be done in the budget process. There could be policies implemented as well going forward to ensure this never happens again, because it should not be allowed to happen again.
And if we're going to have college administrators that are going to allow this to happen, those are the administrators that need to be removed. Put administrators in that are going to be diligent to keep our students safe.
Look at the other thing that I think hasn't been, look at the destruction of property. Look at the buildings that were taken over, graffiti, vandalized, destroyed. How much, millions of dollars of damage on these campuses.
And the administrators let that happen.
And the taxpayers are supposed to pick up, the cost of that? No. To me, that's completely wrong. And again, why there needs to be repercussions for those who carried out these acts. And again, these are acts. This is an expression. These are actions, criminal actions that were taken, on our campuses, and there needs to be accountability.
Do you have any comment on the attack 2 nights ago by counter demonstrators on the encampment at UCLA?
Well, look, no violence should be condoned at all, right? And so that was violence from another group attacking the protesters on campus. But but let's be clear, there was violence on both sides. There was violence against Jewish students. There were people attacked, right? And so none of that is okay, right? But who helped cause all that? To me, the campus administration,
right, exactly,
who allowed this chaos to continue over weeks
to get to that point,
and let it escalate and let it continue to escalate, and basically no law enforcement was caused in to bring peace and security on that campus. So bottom line, like, there shouldn't be violent acts taking place on campus. You can have your viewpoint, and you can strongly express your viewpoint, but
you don't have the right
use violence to bring across your point.
You don't have the right to spray paint buildings, break windows, damage the facilities, and hold other students hostage. You just don't have that right.
Have you guys had conversations with the budget chair, Senator Wiener, and Assemblymember Gabriel, who of course are also Jewish, so not sure if those conversations have started this week?
I have not had conversations with them yet. I mean, again, we're just talking about the things that we would propose should be done, on this issue. Obviously, last night CHP came in and restored order, at UCLA, and so there's been some good movements here recently, but we need to make sure that there's accountability moving forward and that this doesn't happen again.
I've had indirect conversations with several of the members, talking about the situation as a whole over the last couple of weeks. After today, the specific conversations can take place regarding our ideas and how we can work together. I can tell you that we've had very strong bipartisan conversations with our Democratic colleagues, and especially the Jewish caucus, knowing that we support them, and they've shown appreciation for that, and we're going to continue to support them and let them know that we're going to do everything we can to make sure that our campuses remain safe. I think one of the things we could consider in this dialogue is whatever state resources have been used to restore order on these campuses and clean them up, whatever dollar amount that is, that's maybe where we start with. That's the penalty that those campuses are going to experience through their budgeting process from the state. And what I want to underscore, something that Assemblymember Gallagher said, we're interested in the administration being accountable for this. We have no interest in the students that have nothing to do with these protests and nothing to do with these damage. We need to support them and make sure that their funding stays in place and they can get the education that they're expecting to get.
And the other thing, where is the governor? Where is the governor? Like, he's done hardly anything that I can see. He put out a statement, yesterday? While all this has been going on, we still don't know, was he the one that ordered CHP to go into UCLA? I don't know. I don't know what executive actions, this is something totally within his purview. That he should have been at the forefront of.
It's his responsibility.
And he's been quiet.
Yeah.
And saying hardly any. That's the problem, man. Like, the complicitness in all of this that allowed this to get to the situation that it is, where we had Zoom classes on Humboldt, all classes were closed down, no in-person education, where classes were canceled at UCLA because people were committing criminal acts on the campus that they just allowed to happen. I mean, so look, it's outrageous, and it can't be understated enough. This is a failure of leadership. It's a failure of leadership by the governor, and it's a failure of leadership by the campus administration.
Sorry, so just to be clear, you're calling for two things through budget actions, which is holding the administrators accountable and also through the Cal Grants holding these students who have committed violent acts accountable?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
What do you say about the chaos it'll add to college campuses with no administration?
With what?
When you get rid of administration, then what's going to happen?
We're not saying get rid of the administration.
What do
We're
they
saying-
do?
we're
What do
saying-
they do? I mean, honestly, these people drawing six-figure salaries from the taxpayer that did nothing. So the administration isn't doing anything. So no, they won't be missed. Trust me. I mean, the students, I don't think are going to miss them, right? What we need is campus police should have been ordered to be doing something, right? Our law enforcement should have been called in to help bring peace to this situation and stop the criminality. Arrests should have been made.
Well,
For
right
people-
now, Sac State, there's no criminality going on. I understand there's some harassment.
So that's different, and that's my understanding as well. There hasn't been violence there. And again,
So should the police go in
There's a distinction. No, there's a distinction, man, where people are just expressing their views.
Right.
You know, but if you start blocking access to libraries and campus facilities, where you take over buildings, you blockade people from being able to go into their classrooms, that's the difference.
I think
it's
we've
not
been
that
very,
hard to understand.
I think we've been very clear on the standard of the First Amendment that we support. And as we stated at the beginning, the First Amendment doesn't protect your right to block other people from doing whatever they want to do, doesn't give you the right to destroy property, and it doesn't give you the right to impede other people's free movement in our country.
And that's what the president said this morning, by the way. The president came out and said exactly that. But where's Gavin Newsom? He hasn't said anything along those lines. I mean, I think what the president said was exactly right. You don't get to destroy property. You don't get to commit criminal acts on campus. No, that's not free speech.
Forgive me, I was a few minutes late. Can you put
We noticed.
a quick synopsis of what your opening statement was?
We're calling for budget action to hold the administrators of these campuses accountable by withholding part of their budget if necessary, and the students that are found guilty of a crime, they lose their Cal Grant grants.
Where do you go from here with that?
Conversations with our colleagues in the legislature to get the proposals in writing and passed.
And would that happen before the fall or the summer?
We're asking
Yeah,
for
having part
budget
of the
action.
budget process in this legislative session, so through June, these are the discussions that are going on. Yeah. Yeah.
And how much money does go to the UC system? You know?
I don't know the exact number, but it's a significant amount of money that goes to both UC and CSU.
Yeah.
But again, we're not talking about students, we're talking about the administration, which, by the way, if you look at administrative budgets have gone up exponentially while student tuition has gone up, right? And so look, I think a lot of students are saying, look, we've seen administrative budgets blow up, who's looking out for the students? And we saw that loud and clear here in the last few weeks.
Thank you all very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.